All right, we're live on Substack. Um, we're just gonna give people a few minutes to get in, get started. I already see that there's like 10 people in here, which is super exciting. Everyone should be getting an email that says that I'm live, which is even more exciting. Hello, everyone that is already here. I have my chat going over here and my screen over here. So if you have questions or comments, drop them in the chat on Substack, and I should be able to see them out of the corner of my eye and answer those questions in real time. Last time I streamed, I had some weird issues with the video cutting out of my screen. So if that happens, let me know in the chat, and I'll see what I can do to get that working again. Yeah, I'm pretty excited. Today we are going to be working on which I just learned how to pronounce, Kanban. I thought it was Kanban. Whoops. The Fizzy app from Basecamp, which is their new approach to issue tracking, or Kanban or Kanban. Different columns, different cards, marking things off as they're done. And right now it is a mobile friendly website, so we can actually see, let's put it on the iPhone size here. We can see this, that works well, fine on mobile, but there's no iOS or Android app. So what we're going to try to do today is see how far we can get with a iOS app. And I don't know. Also, full disclosure, I have not looked at this code base at all. All I have done is pulled down the code. Is it up here still? It's not. I essentially pulled down the code and ran bin setup and then ran bin dev, and everything worked. So first off, kudos to the folks over at 37 Signals Basecamp for making this just like work really well out of the box in terms of the development experience. It was really nice to just have that, like, no issues. Okay, let's do it. So let's sign out. I don't even know how to sign out because I've never used it before. Let's see. Search, latest activity. We have some boards added by me. Sign out. So what we have when you start the app is you have david@example.com to sign in. And then that gets you your code right here, which is really cool because they only show this in dev versus sending an email, which I really liked just because I don't have to open another browser window. I don't have to open my email client. And let's open Clean Slate, which is just what I've been working on here. I added a single little card here under maybe called iOS app. So let's just see if we can get that working, if we can get signed in. We get an iOS app that's pointing to our fizzy.localhost port 3006, and we'll go from there. So I have Xcode here, and I'm going to create a brand new project, and we're going to use an iOS app, and we're going to call this Fizzy, of course. I'm not too worried about like signing this yet. I can always sign it later, but for organization identifier, I will do com.basecamp.fizzy, since that is the name of the GitHub repository here. It's under the Basecamp name. We'll click storyboard because we want to make sure we're not using SwiftUI yet. And language Swift, no testing, no storage, looks good. And we will throw this. We'll throw this in workspace, external Basecamp, and then I already have the Fizzy directory there, and I'm just going to create a new folder called iOS inside of here, just so I don't create any conflicts. Switch to the iPhone 17, and then the first thing that I always like to do is let's cd into this directory. And what we're gonna do is get init, and we had a bunch of like stuff that I don't really care about. So we're gonna open git ignore, and we're gonna ignore anything that's XC user data. And I think that that should get what we want. So we also have XC user state. I want to get rid of that too. That's stuff that's tied to the user, not like, it's like my preferences, right? Like I don't care if, I don't want that checked in. Okay, so we have the scheme, app delegate. Okay, this looks good. Let's just call this initial commit for now. Great. Okay, we have an app. That doesn't do anything. I'm gonna clean up some code here because we don't need a lot of this, which is kind of nice. We don't even need that. No, we don't need that. We do want these because we want to make sure we have the default configuration. Scene delegate, we're gonna do something very similar, but we don't need any of that. We're actually gonna toss the view controller entirely. We're gonna toss the main file entirely. And for the launch screen, I just like to throw a little label here. We're gonna call it, come on, Xcode. I have a beach ball cursor, if that's not showing up in the stream. Great. How you doing, Xcode? Not responding. Off to a great start. Let's try again. Okay, so view controller scene, launch screen. The launch screen is what we get when the app first opens. And I just like to add Command-Shift-L to get this little accessory thing. Just a little label with the name of the app. And then I will hold Option, hold Control, and we'll do center horizontally and trailing space to container. Command Option equals to put that in the right spot. And now that is going to need constraint for Y. Well, I gave you a constraint for Y. I want, oh, not trailing, bottom and center horizontally. We don't want this one. There we go. So that when the app launches, it will just show Fizzy down in the bottom right. Video quality is very low. Oh dear. Sorry about that, Peter. Is anyone else seeing low video quality? Chime in the chat if you are. I'm wondering. Stream. Have everything set up to like the max I can in OBS. So I'm not sure why that was happening. Sometimes. Let me turn off. Let's see if that helps. Okay. Running the app. We have iOS 26.1 here. Something's going on with on my machine, clearly. So let me see what, I don't have a video anymore. All right, we're gonna use this camera because for some reason the other one isn't working. Let's make sure that I can add it over to when we're coding too. And let's get that shrunk down. Okay. All right, good enough. All right, so hopefully that improves the quality there. So Xcode crashed, could not find the storyboard. That makes sense actually because it's trying to find a storyboard that no longer exists. So we need to tell it, hey, actually like don't do a storyboard here. Get rid of the storyboard from there and also get rid of the storyboard from here. Now when we run the app, it will, it won't crash, but I don't think it will do anything. Yeah, black screen, which is actually what we want here. So here we're gonna grab the window scene. I always forget the window scene dot. I always forget the exact cadence here. So you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna open up my daily log app. And we're gonna, let's see here. We're gonna look at iOS, delegate. Oh, I didn't do it on this one. Okay, let's look at, if daily log isn't doing it, let's look at my newsletter. There we are. Okay, sorry about that. I always forget the exact window order to run these in. Now we can actually add Hotwire Native. So we'll do File, Add Package Dependencies, and it should be my first one here. Hotwire Native iOS. And now we can import Hotwire Native, and then we can have a private let navigator, which will have a configuration. The name will be main and start location. Let's see. What does the app start with when it first launches? If I go to fizzy.localhost 3006 in private browsing, it redirects me to session new. So I can actually use that as like the base URL here. And then we'll just start there because I'm assuming if I grab this, it will redirect me to choose an account. Oh, interesting. Let's see what happens if we try again. Yeah, it actually will. Okay, so we might have to actually persist that somehow in like where they were signed in last, or Something like that if you have multiple accounts. Either way, let's call navigator dot start. Oh, we didn't set the window. Window dot root view controller equals navigator dot root view controller. Need that. The resource could not be loaded because the app transport security policy requires the use of a secure connection. So it almost seems like we're trying to get upgraded to HTTPS, but we really don't want to. And I think that that's because we're accessing Fizzy.localhost. Like if we were just grabbing localhost 3600, is that the right port? Localhost 3006. Yeah, and that doesn't work with Fizzy. So we need to Xcode disable app transport for localhost. Another info plist, magic incantation. So what we're going to do here is open our info.plist and then add a new property called NSAppTransportSecurity, which is a dictionary. And then inside of that, we're going to have not allow all arbitrary loads, but we want NSException domains. Exception domains, which is a dictionary. Really? Oh, yeah. And then inside of that, we'll have the actual domain here, which is fizzy.localhost. And is that all we need? It's a key is localhost pointing to a dictionary. Dictionary. And inside of that, we will have this is set to true. And I'm not going to set that. Allow subdomains. Let's see if we can get by without it first. Same problem. That's not a domain. Okay, so we have our redirected to our sign-in screen here, which is great. That's a good start. Let's just do dave@example.com. And we have our code, which is VTWVXS. Enter. Complete your sign up. Well, that's interesting. David. Okay, we're in. I don't know why it asked me to enter my full name, but anyway. So okay, we're in. We have now kind of like the root screen. We have some search here at the bottom, our notifications. Everything seems to be looking okay, but if we go back, we're like back in our sign-in list, which is kind of weird. So we probably want to clean that up. Let's run the app again and see what happens on relaunch here. Oh, that's nice. So it must have redirected us to where we were last. So let's, I'm going to clear out our logs and just watch what happens here. A lot. Whoa. We got a GET request for the root, and then we were redirected automatically to session menu, and then require account redirected us. We got session menu. Okay, so that require account redirected us to session menu. We got session menu. We signed in, it looks like. We got redirected again to sessions menus controller, which redirected us, which redirected us to our tenant when we got, and then we got our tenant, which I think is the last network request. Yeah, this is all views, some caching. Whoa. Wonder what that is. All the cards, rendering collections. Yeah, no more get requests. This is my avatar. This looks like either some prefetching. Here's action cable. Yeah, so at the expense of another 2 network requests, I feel like this is actually pretty good. We don't have to worry about really anything there. But let's start playing around with it. Like if let's say we switch to the playground board, which is where we were before, and we want to add a card. Okay, I mean, that worked pretty well, actually. This is nice. Okay, we can get rid of this back button. We don't need 2 of those, also because it's pushing a new screen on the stack. So, and we also probably want to make that a native in some way. But first, let's work on the path configuration. So if I had add here, I want this as a modal. I want this to slide up from the bottom. I don't want it to be pushed onto the stack. So let's try that. And if you can still see the stream, why don't you just comment off in the chat there? That'd be great. Okay. Cool. Thanks, Eduardo. Thanks, Peter. I guess we don't even need to touch the server code yet. We can just do a local path configuration. So let's import Hotwire Native here, and then we'll say did finish launching with options. We'll return, yeah, true. But we'll first configure Hotwire. We'll do hotwire.load path configuration from, we're going to load it from, what is it? Data? No, we're going to load it from a file. And we're going to load it from a file URL. Oops. Did finish launching with options. And the file URL is going to come from our local resources. So what I'm going to do here is we're going to open up GitHub. We're going to do Hotwire Native iOS. And in the demo app, we have a really good example of this. We're going to just copy that right here. So it's saying find the file named pathconfiguration.json in our resources. So we'll add a new empty file. We'll call it path-configuration.json. JSON. And here we will give it, okay, so we have settings, which is just an empty hash, and then rules, which is an array. And what is the path that we want to match here? So we have rules is an array of hashes, and then it is path. I always forget, what is that? And then properties, context, modal. And let's go to the native documentation for path configuration, patterns. That's what I was looking for. Okay, so we could just say this, right? That is our account, our tenant slug, and then we're saying for the board with that kind of GUID, I guess, slug / cards. Interesting that hits cards and not like cards new. Let's double check that. Oh, it's because it's posting. That's not what we wanted. We wanted, this is the get for the card. I'm looking for like the /new probably. All right, let's clear this out. Plus. Whoa, okay, so it actually creates a card? That's interesting. So it doesn't, it's not like a normal new. It actually creates something. It posts when we hit that plus sign. This is the one that I added earlier. Huh. Let's look at some code. So we have the cards controller. Let's just assume def new. Ah, there's no new. Okay. And then the routes, we have the cards is only create. That's super interesting. And then under the columns, we have cards. We can close it. Previews. Interesting. So there's no actual new route. We do create. That's why. Okay, so we're doing, okay, this is actually pretty cool. So if I were to hit add a card here, this draft of number 12 is actually already in the database as drafted. So if I go to the browser and I create a new card, it's I'm in a different workspace, hold on. I'm like in a totally different account, actually. Let's try signing in again. Okay, now we're actually in the same card. So if I add a card here, Hotwire Native app number 2, this is technically the same card. Let me just, so if I were to say foobar. Yeah, look at that. That's really cool. So because it's my card, I guess, I can edit this thing, second test. And it's making a post request to update the card and then coming back through some sort of webhook or WebSocket connection to update the card over there. Okay, that's really cool. It does make our our code a lot more complicated though, because how do we know when they are posting to this, right? Versus just, because when they create a new card, they're actually posting. Well, let's just try it. Let's just see what happens if we, oh, okay, here's how we'll test it. What happens if I just hit that URL? There's no get route. Okay, so that's good because we can just route that in our app as is. So it's saying for our tenant, for our project, when we visit cards, presented as a modal. So let's see if that works. Obviously, we'll need to move this and that to a regex pattern. I think that this should be recorded, Jesper, and then I'll post about it on Substack when it's done, yeah. Okay. So let's make sure we're loading our path configuration. We hit that route. Clean slate. And then add card. So I was hoping that this would open in a modal, but I'm actually wondering if it's because it's a post request, it's not going to work. I've never had routed a thing like that. So let's skip that for now. And instead, what could we do next? We probably want to remember where they were signed in and then redirect to that project, right? We don't want, we want to open up this page on launch instead of every time they open the app, they have to pick the project they're on. So it's a good way to do this. We could do it on the server and have like a remember the last project. Let's see if that endpoint already exists. If I just visit the website, no. And if I do fizzy.do and I go to sign in, it did direct me. Oh, I don't even have a board, so not a good example. And these are called accounts. Entropy's controller. Oh, I'm under test. Who's Kevin? This is for admins. I think that we're going here. Uh-oh. And no. Account users active. Oh, this is for looking at, oh, this is admin again. This is looking at the accounts. Menu. Should just read the route. Menu controller. Sessions menu controller. There we are. Okay, so we only have a show route here. Oh, so that's what's happening on my other account. If there's only one account, we're just like redirecting right to the root URL for the first account slug. So what we could do is persist the last account that they signed into in a cookie, and then only apply it for Hotwire Native apps. Or we could have it live on the client and just like do the redirect ourselves, which feels a little iffy because like I guess if the slug name changes, we might be out. So I think it has to happen on the server. So where do we hit, what's our root URL? Events index. That's interesting. So this is events. That surprises me. Doesn't seem at all like the events. There must be a before something. Yeah. So if you're not signed in, you get sent to the... Oh, if you don't have an account selected, you get sent to the session menu URL. Okay, and then if you are, this I think is the actual events. Yeah, there it is. That's the events. Okay, so the current is not persisted. It doesn't seem. I don't see any cookies or anything here. We have a session. Belongs to an identity, which is a record. And then current has a session, a user, and an account. So when does account, with account, without account? When we set it. So current.account. Middleware. Ah, okay. So it's all coming, so there is no cookie. It's actually just coming from that. Okay, that feels safe to persist then, because like on the client. Don't need to look at that, do you? You can, because if this seems like it's gonna persist forever, right? So why don't we extract that after a successful load and write it to user defaults or something, and then say, okay, visit that. Because if I visit this, yeah, it's just asking me to sign in. So that feels safe even if we persist it like between authentication. So let's see. We need to know, I kind of want to use a bridge component versus extracting something from a URL, because I want to just like get that ID and persist it when they're signed in. I don't want to say, well, I guess every time they switch. This is tricky. Because we don't want to grab session. But I don't think there's anything else. What was that, events? That doesn't exist. Maybe we could. All right, let's just brute force it for now. Scene delegate, self, extension, scene delegate, navigator, delegate, did propose. Let's do requested finish. Because now we're going to have the URL. And we're going to say, let's say URL.path components. This is going to be is it the account slug? Tenant? Account slug. Yeah. Let's call it first component. Because what we want to do and say component matches. And we want to match all IDs. Let's see, Swift, match, string, to, oh no. So we're now, every time a request finishes, we're grabbing the first component from the path components, and then we're taking that and turning it into an integer. So if we have an account slug, we can say user defaults dot standard dot set account slug for account slug. I think that if we don't have that, we actually, because that's going to be on every single page, right? Once we sign in, let's just like click through, we're always going to have that account slug there. So if we don't have it, let's make this an if. Otherwise, we actually want to remove. That's going to be like, okay, they signed out. It's not perfect because someone could visit a page that is the, oh no, actually it works really well because if they visit the account switcher, we do want to end them up back at the account switcher the next time they launch the app. So this actually works really well. Okay, so now when we launch the app, our base URL is actually going to be, it's actually like the account URL. And the account URL is going to be if let account slug user defaults integer for key this is a integer, that's fine. Account base URL appending path account slug. Now it's going to fail because it can't add, it needs it to be a string here. Cool. And then otherwise we're going to just return okay. Initializer for conditional binding must have optional type, not int. Oh, integer for key returns a 0. That's not what I wanted. So it's going to be like let account slug if account slug doesn't equal 0. That's kind of ugly. I don't know if this is any worse. That feels worse. Okay, this is interesting because there's a style guide that I've been meaning to look at. There's about early return types on the Fizzy guide. Conditional return. In general, we prefer to use expanded conditionals over guard. Bad, good. If something else something. Okay, cool. I can do that. There we go. So now let's add some logging. I always like to grow a function here to know where we are in the app. Set account slug to account slug. Removed account slug. And then here we're going to say loading account URL Loading base URL. Okay. Martin's asking if it's common practice to catch values from the URL. For this purpose, we're trying to, when we launch the app, redirect immediately to... So right now, when we launch the app, we are landing on this every single time. And we want it to land on the project, or the account of the last one you looked at. So what I'm doing is when the app launches, instead of just loading base URL, we're going to try to load the most recent one that you visited. This isn't something I've done in the past, so it's not like I wouldn't say it's common, but it does feel like it could work. So account URL, that's the function we're in. We're loading the root URL, and then here we go, Martin, we're on that account selection page. And then we're also then removed account slug. We removed nothing because we don't have one. That's fine. When I click clean slate, removed account slug, removed account slug, removed account slug. So that is not expected. I expected that to actually load to get in here. So let's see what's going on here. I'm going to refresh this page and see what's going on. So print out URL or print object path components dot first. Whoa, slash. Oh, well, that's just... Come on, really? Okay, so we have to do we actually want to grab the second one at index 1, but we can't do that without... We can't do that safely because we might not always have a path component. So now we have to be like, if url.pathComponents.count is greater than 1, let component equal components 1. Initializer for conditional binding must have optional type. Right, so that can't be in the if statement because that's always going to return something or it's going to raise. So what we'll do is this. And now, is this optional? It is optional. Okay, so we actually have 3 paths, which is really frustrating. We're going to make this code really ugly and then we're going to clean it up. Because now we actually need the else, like we need this again. Okay, we'll clean that up, but hopefully that should work. All right, what do we got? Removed account slug, perfect. Open clean slate. Okay, set account slug to this. So if I now background the app, stop it, let user defaults write, I should load directly to the clean slate project. Hey, it worked. So we loaded the account URL, which is this, and we set the account slug to that. Okay, cool. This is ugly. So what I want to do is, there's like 3 things that are going on here. We are extracting the account slug, we are persisting it to disk, and then we're building a URL with it if it exists. So I want 3 different objects here. I want something that wraps our user defaults. So let's build that. That's the easy one. We have an extension on user defaults, which is like var account slug, which is an optional. Oh, I wonder if we could. No, we want to make it integer. And then on get, we're just going to. Oh, this is so interesting because it's like that isn't optional, right? Like that is integer for key. Do we store if we store it as a string, it would return an optional value, which might be a little bit better, because right here we actually have to say if that equals 0, return nil, otherwise return the value, which is let's do this. String for key is returns an optional string. So there's no string there. Cool. And then set, we're going to say set new value for account slug. Okay. Argument type user defaults, that's delegate. I don't know what the hell is that talking about. Okay, delegate. I think I have a missing, there we are. Now we can use that down here. So we can say user defaults dot standard dot account slug equals account slug. And here we'll wrap it in a string. I don't mind that. And then here we'll say user defaults standard account slug equals nil to clear it out both times. And then up here, the account slug will come from user defaults dot standard dot account slug. And now it's a string, so we don't even have to, oh, that's nice. We don't have to do any of this nonsense here. We can just say if let account slug. Nice. Get rid of our... Okay, that's looking good. Some sort of, well, we can move this out at least. So this is cool. If you cut and you do file new, file from clipboard, it'll actually create that for you, which is pretty sweet. User defaults, just call it user defaults. And always main actor, because that has to happen on the main thread. Now, account, let's open up a endpoint where we can throw base URL, an account URL. We'll have an enum called endpoint. Static. I like that. And then here, endpoint. Cool. Okay, last one is we want to pull this out somehow. So what do we want to call this? A account slug. Actually, that sounds great. Let's call it account slug. We'll initialize it with the URL. And then this will have a property called account slug.account slug feels weird, but let's do that. And then here we can say, we can do all this. If the URL.pathComponents.count is greater than 1, we just want to return the account slug. as a string. Oh, this is actually really nice because now we don't need any of this. We can just return nil. That's really nice. URL components count is greater than 1. Component, if the account slug is an integer, return it as a string, otherwise return nil. And then here we can say if let account slug URL dot slug, we want to write it to disk. Otherwise, we want to delete it. I like that. That looks good. And it seems to be working okay. If we sign into 37 signals, then up here we can verify 37 signals. The next time we launch the app, it should open in 37 signals and not in the other one. Nice. All right, that looks pretty good. That looks pretty good. Let's see, what would be another quick win? I think that if I were building this app, right, I would want to move, I would actually probably hide this entirely. I would move this into a native control at the top that just triggers this web stuff, just like on Basecamp. And I would also then maybe even get rid of like Fizzy. Move this to a button and this to a native button, and then this to like some sort of native filtering. But overall, like there's some, I mean, because it works so well on mobile, it is a pretty solid app already, even if this upper area looks a little janky. I really like how this went. I think that there's opportunity for a lot of improvements on this. Like we could start talking about push notifications. We could start talking about deep linking for those email sign-in routes. There's a lot of stuff that we could be adding to this that would make it just a much better app. Of course, Android as well. But yeah, I think this was fun. Sorry for all of the weird issues with streaming. I'm just still figuring that out, and Substack and OBS play nicely, but just not perfectly yet. If this was helpful or enjoyable, drop a comment. Please let me know what worked, what didn't work, and I will be posting a recap of this with a quick write-up probably later this week to everyone who's subscribed to the newsletter. So if you want to subscribe and hear about this and get the recording, that'd be awesome. We want the next episode. Yeah, I think that for the next time, we'll probably just try to do the same thing on Android. I think that'd be cool. I think it'd be awesome to do this same approach for Android because I think the code will be very different, if even maybe not possible. I don't know. That'll be fun. But yeah, feel free to reach out if you have any questions or want some help with your Hotwire Native app. I'm always around for that kind of stuff. Thanks for coming, everyone. Really appreciate it. I'll see you next time.